but I'd like to move now to distinguishing ethical reasoning from other modes of reasoning.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah.
Just to lay down some more foundations for us, which I find extremely helpful in delineating when we are actually dealing with ethics and where ethical concepts and principles should be guiding our reasoning. So we can when we look at the way that people think about ethics, we can see that ethics is often confused with three other but different modes of reasoning. One is that ethical questions are often confused with religious questions. So ethics being confused with religion, ethics being confused with social questions, ethical questions versus social questions. So ethics versus social conventions, and we'll unpack these. And then ethics being confused with the law. So to put this briefly, what I mean by this is that people often think that it is religion, for example, that defines ethics, or it is social conventions, rules, customs, mores, taboos that define ethics, or that it is the law that defines ethics. And the fact is that ethics cannot be collapsed into any of these other modes of thinking, although there will be overlap because many religious traditions are embodying ethical principles. Many social conventions embody ethical principles, and laws can also embody ethical principles. But none of these other modes of reasoning should be defining ethical concepts and principles, because ethics stands alone and is self-defining. So there are ethical concepts, there are ethical principles that emerge from those. And these are separate from, not to be defined by, any other modes of reasoning. And again, we need paradigm cases to make this clear. So let's start with an easy one, the law. So if we can think of any examples of laws that have been unethical, then we will have proved the point. So one easy one is all of the laws, first of all, that allowed for slavery. Just say, take in the US. You can take any country, but we'll just take the US. The laws that enabled slavery to begin with. And then the laws that continued to deny Blacks or African Americans their rights once slavery was abolished. And all of those codified laws that then had to be eventually removed from the law were all along unethical from the very first to the last. So that's just one set of paradigm cases, and there are many others.
There are lots of them, right? Yeah.
Did you want to add to the law?
No, I was going to ask you, you're going to go on to the other two?
Yes, and we can come back to any one of these, but just starting with paradigm cases. So then if you take religion, then you can say, if a religion says to kill the firstborn male. Now, Gerald, I think you were the firstborn male in your family.
Oh, no, but I'm glad now.
So you see, if a religion says to, within its books, within its whatever principles it's abiding by, if it says you should kill the firstborn male, then ethical principles will override that. And to say that's, all things being equal, that's wrong. Because why? Because you have a right to live, to life and liberty. You have a right to that. And so there are many others that we can discuss, but again, we need paradigm cases. And then if we take social conventions, well, these are the rules and customs, procedures, again, taboos that we live by and that we basically agree to socially. And so we take these are harder because any examples that we use may be offensive to people.
Well, I find it easy. It might still be offensive to people, but I find it easier if I do it the other way around. That is ones where an example is saying that polygamy is wrong, right? That's a gut feeling that sometimes people still have. But a while ago, lots and lots of people in the United States felt polygamy is just intrinsically wrong. Not so much anymore because marriage has not become so essential. So people living with having sex with multiple partners does not seem as wrong. But that's a custom where we say of other customs that it's wrong. So that doesn't mean there's any validity to our judgment that polygamy is wrong, right?
That's a good example.
Yeah.
And that's a good example because, for one, that the attitude that people tend to have about that has changed, even just in the past 10 years or so.
Right.
So some years ago, it was considered by some to be all right, and then it was considered to be a horrible and terrible thing.
Yeah.
Now it's considered to be all right again, at least in terms of people living in multiple, let's say, with multiple people,
Right.
and where there may be a sexual dimension. That's a good example. It's some easy ones like spanking your children. There was a time when, remember, spare the rod, spoil the child.
Right.
And that might have been the theory, let's say, half a century ago. And then the child psychologist came along and said, I don't think you should be doing that. And that's not a good way to raise children. And think about the times when parents were taught to just let their children cry. Just let them cry. And even though they may be super tiny, just let them cry it out. And this, we realize that's most cases not the best idea, that infants need to be held mainly or a lot. And